Good evening and welcome to a regular meeting of the East Windsor Regional School District Board of Education. I hope everyone's adjusted to the time change and is not struggling like me. Written advance notice of this meeting was provided at least 48 hours ago. Such notice provided the time, date, and location of this meeting and included the agenda to the extent it was known at that time. Notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with law. Minutes of this meeting are being kept by the board secretary and will be made available promptly to any member of the public requesting them from the board secretary at 25A Leshen Lane, Hightstown, New Jersey. Minutes will be provided at cost and in accordance with board policy. Are there any board members present who believe this meeting to be in violation of the Open Public Meetings Act? There being none, we may proceed. In compliance with the fire code of the state of New Jersey, I call your attention to the emergency exits for this room, which are located at the side and the back. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll now move on to item C.
You can just stand right up here. Okay. Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Paula Callia,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people.
and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people.
I state your name.
I, Paula Callia,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of a member of a Board of Education,
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education,
that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1,
that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1,
and I am not disqualified due to any conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJSA 18A:12-1.
and I am not disqualified due to any conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJSA 18A:12-1,
And that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. You can take your seat.
Congratulations and welcome, Paula. Now move on to item D.
Having read the materials received, I move the agenda be approved as submitted.
Second.
Are there any questions? Poll the board, please.
Ms. Drake,
Yes.
Ms. Lands,
Yes.
Ms. Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Brajoli,
Yes.
Mr. Weeks,
Yes.
Ms. Patel,
Yes.
Ms. Salter,
Yes.
Ms. Callia,
Yes.
Ms. LaRusso.
Yes. Item E.
Be it resolved that the East Windsor Regional School District may hold 2 closed sessions at this meeting. These closed sessions concern personnel, HIB report of March 11th, 2024, superintendent evaluation training, Minutes of these closed sessions will be made available to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Second.
Are there any questions? Poll the board, please.
Ms. Drake,
Yes.
Ms. Lands,
Yes.
Ms. Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Brijoli,
Yes.
Mr. Weeks,
Yes.
Ms. Patel,
Yes.
Ms. Salter,
Yes.
Ms. Kalia,
Yes.
Ms. LaRusso.
Yes. Now we'll move on to one of my favorite parts, student representative report.
Thank you. Last Wednesday, the girls volleyball team in class of 2024 hosted our annual student versus staff basketball tournament. One of the student teams won the tournament, and many members of the HHS community came out to support the players. The event was a success by all means, and we hope to see it happen again in the future.
About 40 students participated in the annual ski trip this past weekend, where they headed up to Vermont to ski for 2 days. The students went to 2 different mountains this year, giving them the opportunity to explore a variety of slopes and test their skills. I had the pleasure of going this year and can confirm it was a lot of fun. We'd like to thank our teachers that chaperoned for managing everything so well, and we hope this is a tradition that continues for many years to come.
As we move into a new season, HHS spring sports are beginning to pick up this week, with baseball, tennis, and softball starting tonight, and the rest of the sports starting on Thursday. We wish all the teams good luck as they begin an amazing season.
On Friday, our Spanish National Honor Society hosted a school-wide dance with a DJ, lights, and food in celebration of World Language Week. Over 100 people attended, and the event was a big success. Additionally, the Spanish, German, and French Honor Societies hosted their annual NHS induction ceremony 2 weeks ago, where approximately 40 students were inducted into their respective honor societies.
On the weekend of March 3rd, robotics kicked off their competition season in Hatboro, Pennsylvania. They took home the prize of the Autonomous Award, setting off an amazing benchmark for the rest of the season. We are excited to see how they place in the upcoming competitions.
Last week, DECA members also competed in Atlantic City at SCDC, which is their state-level competition. Approximately 50 students competed, with 4 students qualifying for nationals in Anaheim, California. Andrew Roberts qualified by placing 3rd with his independent business plan event. Sonia Aurora, Jasmine Nacionales, and Alicia Rajadiksha also qualified, taking home 5th place for their community giving project. We are proud to see their hard work recognized and wish them the best of luck at the next level of competition. The members of FBLA will also be competing in Atlantic City tomorrow and Wednesday in their state competition. Based on their work this year, we are certain they will bring back good news.
An upcoming opportunity for the business students is a business symposium on March 21st. The department has arranged for 4 guest speakers who are successful in the business world to come in and speak to students about their careers. There will be a Q&A as well as a breakout session so students can closely interact with a speaker of their choosing. The symposium will take place from 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. and is open to DECA and FBLA members as well as any business students that receive a teacher invitation. This is a great opportunity for our future business professionals, and we hope to see them take advantage of it.
For the past several weeks, the students of Hightstown have been going through the process of course scheduling for the next school year. Students submitted their requests through the grade portal and are meeting one-on-one with their counselors to ensure they are on the right track.
As the underclassmen pick their classes for next year, our seniors are taking a different route to prepare for their futures. While decision day is still up in the air, they're preparing as much as they can by going on college tours and attending admitted students' days. Many seniors have already committed to schools such as Princeton, UPenn, Rutgers, TCNJ, Rider, and UMD, as well as many, many more. We hope to provide you with more updates as we get closer to finalizing our decisions.
The juniors are also taking important steps to prepare for graduation by sitting for the NJGPA test this week. Today was the first day of testing, and it will continue through Thursday. They will partake in 2 days of math testing and 2 days of English. We thank Ms. Riggy for planning everything very well, as the first day went very smoothly. The rest of the student body is enjoying their delayed openings, as they are able to arrive at 10:30 each day this week.
This past Saturday, Hightstown hosted our first SAT that used the new digital format. The updated test is 2 hours long instead of 4 and is adaptive to each student. As they move through the sections, the questions adjust to their level. Some students found this software to be slightly difficult to use, but others seemed to like the convenience of a shorter testing time. On the technical side, there were no issues with the new test.
On February 27th, a group of Hightstown students attended the first strategic planning meeting. Many students expressed that they felt their concerns about the school were heard and will be taking advantage of the next meeting on Thursday to give more feedback.
We'd like to conclude our report by inviting you all to come and watch the Drama Club's production of SpongeBob the Musical. The club will be running previews tomorrow and Thursday during the school day for the high school, and both Anusha and I are excited to see it. On Saturday, there is a Meet the Characters event at 11 a.m., which would allow families to come and meet the cast of the production. We hope to see you guys at the shows. The musical will have shows running March 21st to the 24th, and we hope you're all able to come and see their hard work. That concludes our report for tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I think I speak on behalf of everyone that we encourage any students that want to come to the strategic planning meeting this Thursday at 6 p.m. to definitely attend. Does anyone have any questions? We'll move on to the presentation.
So good evening, everyone. Each time of this year, this is when we kind of engage in the process of sharing a proposed budget for the upcoming school year. Just to provide a little background, we typically begin this process in the fall, where we engage with members of our district leadership team in terms of trying to assess needs, obviously to support our academic and educational program, but also evaluating the things that kind of undergird and support that, whether it's facilities, specific programs, equipment for staff and students, but also personnel. So we engaged in that process, and tonight we're going to twofold. I'm going to share a little bit about what I believe, or what we believe, are some areas to focus on to support our academic program, and some other things. And then Paul, I'll pass things over to Paul to kind of really get into more of the numbers, right? To talk about how we are responsibly kind of preparing the budget, adhering to some state requirements, and ensuring that we are good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. So I'm just going to quickly, I'm not going to spend too much time on these issues. I'll talk a little bit more when we get to some areas of focus, but just want to provide some reminders in terms of where we are this year. So when we talk about a budget, it represents a number of different things, but ultimately we want to make sure there are some key areas that we focus on in terms of the meaning behind it, right? So for us, the budget obviously is a planning tool because it should reflect, we talked about strategic planning, there is a correlation there because it should reflect our values as a school district. Obviously, it enables us, it forces us actually to prioritize our resources. We also have to look at contingencies, the what ifs, just to make sure that we are prepared. As I shared before, we need to be fiscally responsible, and we also need to make sure that we are considering safeguards and buffers. So for us, our mission, this is a kind of the heartbeat of our mission, when we just talk about what we represent as a school district, as an educational institution. Just a few words to pull out, right? We want to create a safe, inclusive environment. We want to focus on best practices. We want to obviously strengthen the academic and social-emotional skills of our students. When we think about that continuum, as students exit us, we just heard from our student representatives in terms of where some of our graduating seniors are looking to move forward to. Hey, it could be an Ivy League institution. It may be a trade school. It may be the military. We want to make sure that our students are well-rounded and prepared to kind of make that transition after their secondary educational experience. And really looking at the K-8, I could say pre-K-8 experience in our school district is serving as that foundation to adequately prepare students so when they get to the high school, they can kind of navigate and kind of hone in on their talents and interests as they're pursuing adulthood. So just some goal areas in our district. We're in the process of determining where we're going from a goal standpoint, but just a few pieces that we have here that undergirds that mission statement. And we have some core goals or fixed goals or long-term goals, and I'm not going to read them all the way verbatim, but I'll just highlight what they represent. So obviously the first one speaks to the notion of a student graduating from our school district with the necessary skills, right, to prepare themselves for post-secondary educational or work-related opportunities. The second goal talks about the importance of foundational literacy skills and looking to have our students serve as skilled readers by third grade. We begin to transition to kind of reading to learn versus learning to read. We recognize post-COVID there's been some challenges for some of our students in terms of the developmental experiences they needed to have, but that's still a focus for us, obviously. The third goal, this is just we're talking about creating opportunities for all students to reach their potential. We recognize there are some of our students based on data, student performance data, who are underperforming, and we want to keep a keen lens on that to ensure that that gap does not widen. And I'll highlight a few there where we have our current and former multilingual learners, our economically disadvantaged students, as well as our special education students. So just ensuring that students are getting what they need to move throughout the continuum. That's a keen area of focus for us. The fourth and fifth goals, the fourth goal just talks about ensuring that our professional development plan and opportunities are aligned with the district's vision, mission, and goals. So that was put in place to just ensure that there's an element of continuity as it relates to what we're providing as tools and support to our educators to ensure that it's in line with where we're looking to kind of have our students move. Fifth goal just talks about providing safe and secure environments. Obviously, we can talk about the physical safety of a school environment, but equally as important will be the psychological, emotional safety that students need to feel when they leave their homes in the morning. Obviously, in recent years in the digital age, in the 21st century, that's also been something that we need to provide a sense of education to our students, but also us as adults in the ever-evolving world of technology. We recognize that can be a vulnerability in terms of what we need to be mindful of. We added actually two more goals. So obviously we talked about our social-emotional skills that we want to connect to learning for our students, but also life success. And then we added a goal in recent years that was connected to the fact that we wanted to make sure that our district decisions were a reflection of the diversity within our community. And it really goes back to the notion of an inclusive environment where all students have opportunities and access to high quality educational experiences. But also, connected to that is recognizing that in a diverse community and diverse school district, our teachers, our staff need to also be equipped to address the various needs and have a sense of cultural competency when dealing with our students. So to undergird those or support those core goals, each year we've been establishing focus goals, which are shorter term, typically one-year goals that kind of bolster, springboard, reinforce, and support those core goal areas. So for this year we have three. Nicole referenced one earlier, which is the strategic planning process that we're partnering with New Jersey school boards with this year. And that is really to kind of just take stock in terms of where are we and to determine where we're going as it relates to creating a 5-year cycle and action plan in terms of getting there. So we had our first meeting about 2 weeks ago. We're scheduled to meet on Thursday for our strategic planning meeting number 2. First meeting was really focused on kind of areas of strength and areas of need. The next one will be kind of looking to kind of crystallize a sense of where we're looking to go and identifying some areas to kind of prepare us to solidify those goal areas for moving forward. But this is really focused on the fact that, recognizing the importance of really engaging the community, having stakeholder feedback voice, so there's a collective sense of, what we value and where we're looking to go. Second focus goal was leveraging the equity audit that the district engaged in last year, and really kind of trying to leverage some of those recommendations to determine how we want to navigate some of those areas as we move forward. So I've shared this before, but the equity audit was framed around actually it was framed around 5 domains. The first one was structured systems resources. The second one was culture community. The third one was equity in the educator workforce. The fourth area was professional learning and personal growth. And the fifth domain was curriculum, instruction, and learning. So we have a district equity team. We've actually been engaging in kind of taking that feedback and leveraging some meetings with our teachers recently. And we're looking to kind of determine how we want to attack each of those domains. One, by reflecting in terms of where do we see ourselves in each of those domains, and let's continue to build upon those areas. And then also identifying some areas where we need to potentially grow and maybe focus on to be somewhat more intentional moving forward. And the third goal was attached to professional development, but specifically under the umbrella of our multilingual learners. Right now we have about 50% of our student population is Hispanic. We have about just over 20% of our students are eligible for some level of support under the umbrella of English not being their primary language. So we recognize the need, right? We want to make sure that our teachers have those tools and they feel a sense of efficacy as it relates to addressing the needs of students. I always say that if a student does not speak English as their primary language, that is not a learning deficit for us, and we want to make sure that we are poised to still ensure that they are grasping and excelling academically. So we engaged teachers primarily under the bilingual ESL umbrella, but not just there, in a 3-day intensive professional learning experience at the beginning of the school year. And we've been kind of embedding and following up on that throughout the year. But that was based on the feedback that we received. I think teachers were somewhat thirsty for that as it relates to engaging in some best practices to support our multilingual learners. So a couple of highlights. I'm going to transition into kind of what we identified as some areas that we needed to address for the current school year. So just a quick look back. So these are just some areas that we identified last year. Supporting our preschool environments from a speech and language standpoint. We also advocated for a preschool social worker. In recent years, we've been noticing some increased preschool referrals to the child study team. So just ensuring that we were equipped to address those requests, those needs. Behavior is another area in the earlier grades where we have identified some need for some additional support, so increasing our team of behaviorists, BCBAs. We were looking to engage in some tutorial support, and that was, we decided to move forward with Varsity, who provides some one-to-one tutoring beyond the school day, but they also provide a pretty robust collection of resources and on-demand support for students as well. Just some buildings and ground support, just in terms of some staffing positions, floater custodians. That was just to ensure that we were adequately supporting our buildings from a cleanliness standpoint. And last year we were preparing and appropriating resources for our salary increases connected to negotiations. Last year we were in the process of concluding negotiations with EWEA, our teacher group. In addition, we supported the music program, which is really based on growth and participation. Our strings program has been growing in recent years. So we kind of moved towards increasing the support to alleviate the strings teacher from having to work in 2 buildings. We also supported our middle school program musically to ensure that the scheduling of lessons was structured in a manner that did not provide situations where students were missing, core academic coursework. We wanted to make sure that the schedule did not have to create a difficult choice, difficult decision for students. So We did support some additional music teachers at the middle school, which appears to be working out quite well. We increased our campus security by 2. I think we're still in the process of actually filling one of those roles. Special education surfaced as a need at the high school, as well as a chemistry teacher. We did add an athletic trainer who primarily works at the middle school, but also provides support to our high school athletic program, and it's been a welcome addition. We were looking at last year honing in on math, so I'll start with the bottom. We advocated, implemented a staff developer, which is really a teacher coach, in essence, at the middle school to provide some additional embedded support for our math teachers. Last year, from a budgetary standpoint, we also asked the board to support some additional math teachers, on Act 3 in particular, and that was focused on, looking to see how we could address some individual needs of students, whether it was through smaller class sizes, but that was something that we definitely wanted to shine a light on, providing some support for students under the math umbrella at the middle school, especially in our course 1 and 2 and 3 classes that are more heterogeneous classes, and we wanted to make sure the students were, and teachers were supported in terms of meeting the needs of those students. Just some facility upgrades. This is kind of twofold. This is really a combination of what was budgeted during the 2022-23 and also current school year. The difference when we talk about budget and facilities, typically the projects are completed at the end of the school year and sometimes transition into the next school year. So sometimes it can be difficult to determine kind of which year it's plotted in. So first few items here. So GNR, WCB, MHK, including the parking lot at MHK. They were actually part of the 22-23 budget. The projects were completed during the summer of 2023. So we just finished those up. So those are like fresh in my mind in terms of the headache that they caused. But you know, for us, when we talk about twofold. One, we do have some aging buildings, especially in Heightstown. Not limited to Heightstown, but our Heightstown buildings are older. So therefore, we would need to make sure that we are creating environments that we think are welcoming and conducive to learning. So we've made a concerted effort in recent years to upgrade things both from an aesthetic standpoint, but also, and I'll give you an example, you know, GNR, when I first arrived here, walked in that main hallway, and it was so dark. So we engaged in some upgrades to lighting, some casework within classrooms, and I'm pleased to say that in about a 5-year window, we've actually upgraded every classroom space at GNR. Still work to be done there, but in addition to that, we've also been looking to focus on air quality as well. So we've been upgrading our HVAC equipment. We've kind of been doing twofold. So those phases have been pretty successful. The work at MHK in terms of the renovations, a lot of that work was done internally with our maintenance department. I'm pleased to say we have a pretty skilled team who enable us to fortunately work on some projects internally. Obviously, when we have volume, larger projects, our team's not going to be able to do that, but there are some projects that we could undergo. Obviously, the MHK parking lot was a pretty big job last year. Twofold. One, the surface just was old, and it was just not great condition, and there was only but so much patching we could engage in. But we also needed to yield some additional parking spaces, so that was a successful project. Transitioning into the last 3 bullets, these are kind of like the primary projects that will occur during the tail end of this school year, transitioning into the summer of 2024. We will continue the renovation process at GNR. There are some large spaces like the cafeteria that we need to hone in on. There'll be some additional HVAC upgrades at that building. One area that we do need to address at GNR, we just walked the building last week, Tina and Jagruti and Jenna. Our hallways, although we've completed our classroom upgrades, we've got some hallway work to do but this summer we'll focus on primarily on some large spaces within the school, but also HVAC, just kind of completing that work. A high school security entrance. So 5 of our 6 schools in the district are designed in a way where when you enter the school through the main entrance, there's I guess you can call it like a contained area. The high school does not have that. So the high school, as most of you are familiar, there's a security booth, which is probably about 25 feet away from the main entrance. So, doors are locked, you get buzzed in, but then you're in the building. And we believe that we need to have a safer structure there. So we've got about 4 different designs. The design I think we're going to move forward with will be kind of taking what was once the principal's office, and he's no longer in it. It's funny, when we first suggested this model, the principal wasn't really happy about that proposal, but he embraced it. We didn't even have to do it, but he decided to go with it, and he ended up moving his office. So we're going to take that office, we're going to take a piece of it, which is now occupied by an assistant principal. We're going to convert some of that and create a little bit of an additional walkway. But I say all that to say we're going to create an enclosed environment when visitors are coming to the high school, whether it's to have an appointment, drop something off, or whatever the case may be, to limit individuals from kind of walking right into the hallway when entering the school. Last item is the auditorium lighting upgrade. This past year, we engaged in upgrading all the stage lights at the high school. And nice job. Definitely noticed the difference, especially when we have our productions and performances. The continuation of that will transition to the house lights and the ceiling. And we're also going to install an updated projector structure in there as well. But that will take place this summer. Personnel. Just a few items under the personnel umbrella. So we are going to increase, or we're proposing to increase our guidance counselor support. We have a couple of counselors at the K2 level who are transitioning between WCB and EMK. We're going to add an additional counselor, which will alleviate the need for folks to travel. We believe that, one of the areas that we've noticed is that our students that have been transitioning to us, especially at our earlier grades, do need some additional support under the social-emotional umbrella, both proactively but also reactively. We want to try to hone in on the proactive approaches, and we believe by adding a counselor that will support that process. Have an elementary special education teacher on here. This is really just based on program. There's a couple of factors that we're always considering. One, we want to minimize sending students out of district. Obviously, we would prefer to educate all of our children in our home schools. Sometimes based on the individual needs of our students, we need to explore other options. And obviously, we'll continue to do that. But we also want to make sure that programmatically, we're exploring ways in which we can maintain our students here as an option within the district. So we're looking to increase, I believe, one of our multiple disabilities classrooms, just adding a teacher to support one of those environments. Middle school, guidance counselors, similar dynamic. Right now, we are looking to propose that each grade level has 2 counselors assigned to it. Right now, the way we have it configured, it's not always the case. So we're dealing with about 400 or so students per grade level. Once again, we want to create a sense of heightened community, heightened support, and we believe that increasing our guidance counselors will contribute to a sense of culture and community at the middle school. Volatile age group, students are going through a lot of changes, both emotionally, developmentally, physically. So we recognize it can be a bit of a roller coaster ride, and we need to ensure that our counselors can serve as a component to steady our students during that transition. Language arts, this is really just based on need and numbers, just in terms of ensuring that our class sizes are appropriate. Special education teachers, I think, based on need at the middle school level. I have special education twice on here, education assistants, really reinforcing that. But this is one of those areas that I talked about not wanting to recommend that students leave the district. And this is a tricky dynamic because I also get worried sometimes that this can come across as being kind of a panacea, but, you know, one of the strategies that we sometimes engage in is supporting students individually. And once again, we typically would do that if we believe that that will alleviate the need to move towards recommending that a student may need to leave the district to go to a special education environment outside of here. So we are looking to, you know, increase our team of educational assistants, but that's just something that we believe we want to do to support classroom environments, but also individual student needs. I have transportation dispatch on here. Really just as, this is just part of the, I would say, the growth and support of our transportation department. You've heard me talk about our transportation department previously. You'll hear me talk about them again. This enables us to have someone that can provide logistical support, which is an obvious need, but also someone who can drive a bus, which is also a need. So therefore, it just enables us to have some backup and some flexibility to support the needs of the department. This is some summer work for the summer of 2025. So this is proposed projects, capital reserve projects, that will be connected to the proposed budget, but this work would not break ground until the summer of 2025, which makes it feel weird. It's like it's part of the 24-25 budget, but we'll be talking about this next year. So a few things. One, highlight in terms of, you know, the HVAC upgrades that we've been focused on throughout the district. The one building that we have not attacked in the way that we would expect has been high school. Large building, old building, just an older building to some degree. So we applied for a ROD grant through the New Jersey Department of Education. We were awarded a grant for about $6 million. In order to get the grant, you need to show that you can fund the project. So we're going to ask the board to support an $8 million investment. The Department of Education will support $6 million to that project. Talking to Paul, that will, and when we complete that project, I would say about 80% of our high school, actually our instructional spaces, I'll frame it this way, probably about 100% of our instructional spaces will be upgraded. There'll still be a few other areas that we need to address, but overwhelmingly our instructional spaces should be in a up-to-date, modernized HVAC standpoint. Scoreboard. So we have a scoreboard on here, which has been an issue that has been kind of on and off, kind of like the scoreboard for the past few years. So our scoreboard in the stadium has some kind of issue that we've been trying to figure out. We thought it was external. We thought it was an electrical issue. We thought it was a wiring issue. I think we've determined that is actually the equipment itself. So we're asking to move forward with a new scoreboard. There's been a few not so proud moments where we're in the heated battle of a game, and then the scoreboard blanks out for a moment, and then it comes back. But it's time. We need to move forward with a new scoreboard. Transformers on here. So just these are things that, you know, we don't really talk about until they don't work appropriately. So we have about 3 transformers that we need. They're really, you know, crucial to our operation as it relates to ensuring that we have power to buildings. We've got 3 transformers that are aging. We had an issue a couple of years ago connected to one of the lines associated with the transformer. We repaired it, but it's something that I'd rather address now. So therefore, we're not in a place where one of them are not functioning and then we're stuck. So we're asking to upgrade 3 transformers. We have a playground blacktop replacement at Ethel McKnight School. This is really just a wear and tear. You know, we've patched it and patched it again. It just needs to be updated, so we're proposing to get that replaced. GNR, so GNR has a preschool pod, population AM/PM program, as well as a self-contained settings there. So we do have some playground equipment in a little area that we've questioned the developmental appropriateness of the playground equipment and also the location. It's probably not the best location because it's not really connected to a playground or field. It's kind of nestled in a little courtyard. So we're looking to move that into an area that we think is more appropriate, more conducive to that age group, that population, but also having some equipment that we think is just more tailored to their needs, but also who they are as 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. The last item on here is just something connected to the White House. So the White House is an old house, very old house, that has great character. We are just questioning the functionality of the White House. So it's an old building. It needs a lot of work internally. And I think we've determined that investing in that moving forward to any large degree probably would not be a wise use of money. So we are proposing that we find a new home. So currently at our White House, we have our central registration, but we also house our Buildings and Grounds Department on the second floor. We actually used to house our bilingual ESL world language department on the first floor. We actually moved them. We transitioned them over here to the administration building, but we don't have enough room here to bring everyone over. So we are in the process of determining should we purchase something, should we lease something, but we need to figure out an exit strategy to transition ourselves away from the White House in the next 1 to 2 years, and we need to kind of seriously pursue some options within the community. So with that said, I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. I always like our budget presentation. The superintendent gets to come in and kind of paint the rosy picture for next year, and then we send in the BA, say, okay, Paul, what is it going to cost us now? So we're going to talk a little bit about some numbers. So let's talk a little bit about a process first. So we start building our budget in October. Internal development is usually the months of October and November. We use our financial accounting system online. All the departments go in, put in their budget requests. We use a zero-based budgeting, and we ask everyone to account for their budget each year. So it's just not like whatever number you had last year, add 2%, and that's the number you get next year. We actually ask for all the departments to itemize to the best of their ability. You know, as I tell people, a budget is a guess, but we want to make educated guesses, and we document that. So we start that in October, November. Usually when we get to December, we close that process down, and then we start central interviews and meetings to talk with each of the departments about the budget requests that they have. And then in the new year, January, February, we start having those conversations with the board, kind of where we stand. So we get school and departmental built budgets. Also, the largest part of our budget is our personnel. We're a labor-intensive industry. We all know that. So a big part of our budget is our position control report, where we document each FTE, where they are, what they do, how much. So we have a pretty solid data-driven budget by the time we get to this point. Sorry, wrong way. All right. So we'll be accepting our audit shortly, and we'll have our auditors in, and we can talk about the financial position of the district. Historically, we've been in very good position, and 2023 is not going to be an exception to that. So we're only allowed to maintain 2% of our budget. So when you look at our budgets, which is going to be about $126 million, you're only allowed to save 2% as a rainy day fund, which is about 2 weeks worth of cash if you think about that. So imagine in your own personal finances is if the most you can ever have and all the money that, that you can stash away anywhere, two weeks worth of cash. That's basically how to the bones the state makes us run. So we have to be very careful with our budget. We have to make sure that if we have any needs coming in the given year, that's budgeted, because we do not have a large windfall to fall back on. The proverbial roof caves in. We just don't have those kind of funds. When you look at our enterprise funds, our kid care cafeteria have been very favorable for us. They're not a financial draw on the district, and they provide great services to our communities. We can now add to that. A few years ago, we went to our self-insured health benefit fund. Last year was our first full year, and we had very positive results. And instead of giving, a lot of money to the insurance company to keep its profits, we're able to hold on to those funds. So in case we have a bad claim year and claims run higher, we get to offset that with funds from the good years. So we're definitely kind of in the driver's seat now, whereas before we were kind of behooving to the insurance company when they would just come in every year. You just know 10% increase at least, 10, 15%. So we have not seen a raise in rates now in a few years. So that's definitely something we're very proud of. And also we have sufficient capital reserves to continue our building renovations. As Mr. Daniels went on, you saw what we've done over the past couple of years and what we even continue to do. So right now our building renovations program is running anywhere between $10 to $15 million a year, depending on what's happening. So this year it's more closer to the 10 million mark. So we have a very active summer every year. So just to get into some of the numbers, here's a little historical view of our budget breakdown over the past few years and the amount of increases of, how large the budget increased year to year. I would say the vast majority of those changes has really been driven by fluctuations in capital projects. So when you see an increase, 19% in one year, next year we only go to 1%, that's because, one year we not only did get a lot of state aid, but we could have also increased our capital reserve, our building projects a lot. But this year we have a pretty flat overall budget. It's only up about 1.2%. Revenue breakdown, we only get our revenue from one of two places. We all know this. Number one, unfortunately, the largest share falls on our taxpayers, and that's the local levy, which next year will be at about $71.5 million. Our total state aid will be about $48.8 million. That number has grown substantially over the past 5 years. I think 2016 was about $18 million. So our state aid has grown somewhere around 165% over the past 5 years. So we've definitely needed that. We were severely underfunded. So when you read the newspaper where the governor has been taking money away from the overfunded districts to give to the underfunded districts, we were definitely the poster child for an underfunded district. And state aid's up 165%. Not too many schools can say that. So even though we've had an incredible rise in our state aid, we kind of knew this year was going to be our final year. The governor said he was going to have a 7-year march to fully funding the formula. So we knew that was going to be this year. We were hoping for a little bit more money than we actually got. We're hoping for $1 million to $2 million, and it looks like we pretty much got flat funded this year. And I'll go into those reasons in a second. But you can see those increases on the right-hand side year to year. The state aid has been growing pretty substantially. So where did our money go? So we have, all right, so we have the adequacy budget. So our formula is kind of broken down as like a calculation to a calculation to a calculation. So let's talk a little bit about our adequacy budget, okay? So right now we have an adequacy budget and then also a local fair share. So every year that adequacy budget goes, and what the adequacy budget is basically a formula, which they created about 20 years ago. And they gave you an allotment, and they said, okay, you get a superintendent, 1 BA, so many administrators. And basically they figure out what it should cost or what they're going to pay for a district of our size, and that's what the adequacy budget is. And then you can see the local fair share. And that's the state's way of saying, this is what we think you should put towards that standard district. And you can see through the years how those percents have increased through the years. Now, you'll notice in this last year, while our adequacy budget grew, you'll see our fair share jumped extremely higher than expected, extremely higher than we've seen in any given year. And we're going to get into that right now. So when they look at your fair share, they look at two things. The first one is equalized valuations, which is a little different than your net valuation or taxable valuation. Your net taxable evaluation is what's on record at the tax collector. This is what's tied to your tax bill. That number could be based on a 1970 evaluation. What the state does is they go through and they actually take actual market sales of houses, and they actually see what the house is selling for compared to what it's actually evaluated on. And they give you a current market value. That's exactly what the equalized valuation is. And you can see we've had some nice growth in that over the past few years. This past year, we had a really big growth. And then also, we had a very big growth, unlike some other years, in the actual district income. And that comes from the New Jersey Department of Taxation. Basically, they just look at your zip code, they add up W-2s, and that's how they kind of come to that number. So you'll see over this past year, and this is something we all know, East Windsor and Hightstown, it's a great place to live. Property values are going up. The incomes in our neighbors are going up extremely well. So according to the state, they feel that we should be paying a little more towards to support our schools. And that calculated about, 1.4 million of the almost $2 million that we thought we were going to get this year. The state now said that 1.4, we think because of these factors, you can pay a little more towards your schools. Okay, here's the general fund over the past couple years. This is also another point of pride. Over the past 5 years, as we've been getting those huge increases, we've been contributing back to the levy. So we have not taken all that money and spent it. We actually contributed a piece for that for tax relief. So off the bat, the state says you're allowed to, maximum without adjustments to increase your levy by 2%. And you can see just over the previous 3 years, we're well below that because we're taking those large tax state aid increases and giving them back for tax relief. So you'll see those numbers substantially under 2%. And here's a little detail. We had 5 years where we've given back $250,000 with those particular fiscal years. 1 year, we actually gave back $500,000. So really, our budget should be somewhere about $1.7 million higher than what it is now. But it's not because we actually gave that money back. So we like to say that we have accumulated about $1.75 million in tax relief into our budgets, which, you always see how they estimate federal programs. So over the next 10 years, we're going to contribute somewhere around $17.5 million to tax relief. And that's not something a lot of districts can say. So not only has our budget grown, we've obviously hired the resources, which we've been underfunded for years, but I think this is a big nod to giving the tax relief that our community so sorely needed. This is just a very high-level summary of the budget breakdown. Actually, everyone has a packet in your hands with a lot more detail, but this is a high-level summary of where we are in the different categories. As you can tell, when you add up salaries and benefits, you're talking 70% of our budget just in those two lines alone. Tuition, that's out-of-district special ed tuition, pretty steady, which it's another area, it's a point of pride. I know a lot of colleagues in a lot of districts from around the state, they're looking at 10 to 15% tuition increases a year. We do a pretty good job of managing who we send out. So when you see, Mr. Daniels talking about special ed teachers and those special ed aides, we're trying as best as possible to keep, students. Not only do we feel that's better for them, but it's also better for our budget because we feel we can more economically, service our students that way rather than sending them for an outside placement. And there's our capital budget. So you can see, like I said, it fluctuates, pretty good from year to year. So we're down about $2.2 million in facilities from year to year, insurance, and all the other items. So just a summary, expense points of interest. Mr. Daniels went over our new FTE. So even though we're flat funded, I think it's a pretty good thing to show. We have about 10 new FTE built into this budget. That's a pretty good talking point. We also have developed kind of a set it and forget it with our technology. We have programs in place that as our technology ages, we're able to replace it before it gets too old. So we have new laptops, new iPads coming every year for all our students. So we're very proud of that. And also, we have a pretty good handle on our facilities, and we have I think in the past 8 years, we've done about 40 facility projects, if you can believe that or not. So every year, we just add another 5 or so onto that list, and it just keeps on growing. All right, so here we go. So how are our taxes shared? So we're a regional school district, so unlike most school districts, which have a single town, we have to split out the tax levy. And how we do that here, you can do it one of two ways. Number one's enrollment. The other way is based on equalized valuations, which we talked about a little earlier, and we get that report from the state. So this is probably the biggest cause, if you will, when you see some fluctuation, especially in the Hightstown tax rate, because their equalized value isn't as high as East Windsor. So just a little fluctuation on their part can make a difference. So anyway, this is how the tax levy has been split out over the past 4 years. So as we come up, you can see the share has shifted slightly over to East Windsor, a little more than the past few years. So here's our tax impact. So when we quote a tax rate, that's dollars and cents, the tax rate, and it's based on $100 of assessed evaluation. And then you'll see for both East Windsor and Hightstown for the past 2 years, those are the average assessed evaluations, and we get that right from the tax collector's office from each of the municipalities. So as you look at that number, you say, hey, Paul, that's nice, but that's not my house. It might be more, it might be less. So if you kind of want to figure out what your tax bill is going to look like just for the schools, take what you think your house is assessed at, divide that number by 100, and then multiply it by one of those tax rates, and that's going to be your approximate tax bill for next year. So next year, we're looking at the average home for East Windsor will be paying about $95, and you'll see, because of that switch in the evaluation and the split, the taxes in Hightstown on the average assessed home is actually going to go down about $150. So where do we go from here? So this is, when you read, this is the preliminary adoption. It's not final. So we're going to preliminarily adopt tonight. We have to send our budget in for county review to the 20th. So that doesn't mean necessarily we're done or everything is frozen at this point. We can continue having conversations. Actually, we're a lot different than municipalities. If we were a township like East Windsor, when they set their budget, they can't do any budget transfers for 10 months. So they pretty much have to be spot on with their budget. When they pass it, they're locked in. They can't change anything for 10 months. We're not in that situation. So even though we're going to preliminarily adopt tonight and we're going to have a public hearing coming up, that doesn't mean we can't change our budget between now and that public hearing and then even after then. So I just, people get a little nervous when they're ready to pass this because they think this is our only opportunity to have a conversation on positions or needs. That's not the case. The point of having a detailed budget is that when those needs come up, we know it's already in there, so then we can kind of trade. Hey, listen, we need this new position. However, we have this position we haven't been able to fill. We think we can do it a different way, and we kind of horse trade like that. So this is an ongoing conversation all year. So after today, we're going to send it to the county. It'll be approved by the 20th. We have to go with, there's a hearing window where they give you the first and the last date, which this year is April 24th through May 7th is when you can actually adopt your budget. And then we just kind of look when we have a regular recurring board meeting. So for us, that's going to be on April 29th. So on April 29th, we will actually have our public adoption, which will be very much a conversation like this. Actually a lot shorter. We're not necessarily going to go through this presentation again, even though we have it queued up ready to go. It'll just be if anyone has any final questions. And with that, any questions?
Hi, thank you for the presentation. Just a clarification. Looking at the page 7 of 16, health services, there was an increase from 46,000 to 743,000. Can you tell me what did we purchase or what services we rendered?
Yep. So we had a conversation this year when we went through and when they looked at where things were being coded. If you actually look in the special services area 11,00219, you'll see a big decrease. So really that's, we just reclassified from one line to another.
All right, thank you.
I have some questions. First, the $6 million ROD grant, that is excellent, that's great news. If we do transition from the White House, will we be getting rid of the White House? Would that be part of the plan?
Yes. It will become, well, you know what, as of today, that would be the plan. Because right now we've been racking our brains about alternatives, and all of the alternatives speak to significant upgrades, accessibility, compliance, and it's just financially, I don't think it's worth it. So that would be the goal, to remove it and create some additional parking.
And we compared the budgets from this year to the proposed for next year. Are we coming in on budget for this year, or actuals higher?
Yeah, usually, we have pretty good budget control, and our costs have been pretty reasonable, so we're going to be, under budget, I would say, absolutely.
Just two more. It went by fast, but the salaries were flat, pretty flat, but we're increasing headcount. Are we expecting decreases somewhere, or?
Yeah, usually there's, we have people turn over when, people retire, so there's going to be some breakage in that. And this is, kind of the sad state, and this is not only us, but, sometimes it's difficult to find a replacement, so there are periods that, we go with a vacancy, which we fill with a sub from ESS, either a daily sub or a long-term sub, so there's usually some breakage there as well, so.
And last one, do we have a list of all the capital type projects that we're projecting the next few years?
What we have, and I can share with you, when we took on 3 big projects, that was really our HVAC overall. We had an HVAC analysis done by an engineer about 3 years ago, and he came up with a huge $60 million estimate of what it was going to cost to upgrade our HVAC, because we're kind of at that point where we're starting to see significant failures. Like if you were at WCB prior to this summer, the wing that we did, pretty much that library area, out of those 6 classrooms, I think 5 of them had temporary air, because it's their time to be replaced. The units are 20 years old and time to go. So I have an analysis of that I can share with you. And also, we had a breakdown of both GNR and WCB in phases, each about 7 to 8 years. That's only a drop in the bucket as far as facility goes. As I tell anyone, no matter where you put the construction shovel, you're going to be right. I mean, our needs far exceed just those 3 things. You hear Mr. Daniels talking about wanting to put a pre-K program, the state-funded pre-K program. We just don't have space for that. We need to have that conversation. We're a sports-mad town, and we do not have enough sports facilities for all of our teams. I mean, during the winter, this is the practice arena for our wrestling team. So every night, our custodians come in, they clear out the tables, and our kids are wrestling in this room where they were eating 3 hours ago. We do not have enough, sports facilities. You're not supposed to say that? Okay. I'm sorry. So we have a lot of needs. And just when you look at some of our facilities, they're just aged, they just need to be updated. Yeah.
Hi, I have a few questions. All right, so my first question is the electrical buses. Are they in the budget for transportation?
No, because they're free.
Nice.
Yeah, so we received, $1 million grant to purchase the buses, $1.2 million to purchase, 4 buses. As a matter of fact, one of those, Mr. Daniels talked about the electrical transformers. One of those transformers is going into the transportation yard for our EV buses.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next question is the White House. If the idea is to tear it down possibly for parking, would that be shared parking for both schools, WCB and GNR, or would it just be for GNR?
Have not determined that yet. I mean, it's closest to GNR, but both schools need parking.
Okay. next question. The playground. If the playground for the younger students is moved, has there been discussion with the teachers as far as where it's going to be moved? Because from what I remember, I think that it was closer for the teachers to bring the kids outside to that one particular playground.
You know, any decision we make, the teachers will be a part of that conversation. There's actually been conversations going back probably at least a year. So I know teachers have been involved in that. Right now, you're right, the current location is convenient because it is in close proximity, but there's some issues in terms of surface, ground surface, and just a few other things. So the teachers definitely are there's no concern regarding the placement. Actually, I think we've had some suggestions from teachers in terms of where we're actually going to situate the proposed playground.
Okay, and then one more question. So when, back during the pandemic, right, when we had remote learning, there were some issues with like the Wi-Fi going down and different things. Did the electrical transformers contribute to that at all? No?
No, that was a couple different things. At its core, that was a combination of having a collection of Chromebooks that were different varying ages. So in terms of Zoom, there was some issues connected to Zoom and Chromebooks that were a little older. You know, we kind of, you know, so that was a lesson learned. So as we scrambled to kind of make sure that we could maintain some continuity of education, we leveraged the devices that we had at our hands, right? So we learned from that, and no. So we are engaging in some other efforts to ensure that one, bandwidth is appropriate. I was talking to Tina and I think Jagruti and Jenna the other day, talking a little bit about strengthening and controlling some of the connectivity between buildings to almost have an intranet structure within buildings from a communication standpoint. In recent years, we've also created an additional hub in terms of internet accessibility. So like the high school typically was kind of like the main point of internet access for the district. We also created another hub at the middle school. So therefore we just wanted to kind of have a backup, right? So therefore, if there was an issue at the high school, we could transfer to the middle school to serve as that primary hub. So there's some behind-the-scenes infrastructure network related projects. It's the dark fiber project is the one that we will be moving forward with next year. That's part of the technology budget, the established technology budget.
Thank you.
I have just one other comment, not to make the White House a hot topic tonight, but that intersection is already kind of nightmarish, and to put a parking lot right there close to it with either an additional access driveway, I'm hoping that whatever planning happens with that, you're engaged with the town to review what other possible uses that could be, or what other access to the school might be planned.
Well, anytime we engage in a project, we involve our architects. And just to be clear, the White House is already attached to a parking lot, and it's not a large facility. So we're probably going to gain minimal parking spaces. It'll be the existing structure. We're not looking to reconfigure the existing parking lot. We're just looking to determine what we can do with the space. So, and look, and I'll be the first to say that from a character, historic standpoint, we would prefer to actually preserve the White House, to be quite frank. And that's not off the table. It's just a matter of preserving it and occupying it, kind of like two different things. So, but your point is well taken. We don't want to create additional traffic woes in that area. I don't anticipate adding a few additional parking spaces because, I want to be clear, we're not creating a parking lot. We're just adding spaces to an existing lot. That's probably a better way to frame it. That would be the goal. But point well taken. And I'm in frequent communication with, I usually use the chief of police for those issues. So he's like my point of contact, Frank Gendron, because we have a lot of conversations regarding traffic flow and how to hinder issues in that area. So we definitely will not exclude them from that.
Anyone else have any more questions? No one? Superintendent report.
Okay, can that just be
That's fine with me.
I'll be brief.
Moving
brief.
on.
So, good evening again, everyone. Just a couple of things to highlight this evening. In terms of budget preparation, I just want to commend our business office with the leadership of Paul Todd, business administrator, for the numbers and the preparation and the detail associated with that. But also, it's a collective effort in terms of our district leadership team, kind of providing input regarding needs that we anticipate for the year ahead. I just want to congratulate Paul Akali, a new board member. Welcome. Look forward to working with you on behalf of the students and families of our community. Just to echo what our student representatives so eloquently stated today, I just want to just give a shout out to our robotics team. Actually had a chance to bump into Chris Gregory over at PLD last week. He had a few members of the robotics team down at the elementary level, working with some of our G&T students. I thought it was pretty cool, to be quite honest with you, to see that level of collaboration in terms of students from the high school working alongside students at the elementary level. So definitely our robotics team is a point of pride. I just want to commend our students who were inducted into the the respected World Language National Honor Society recently, and also want to commend our students who were successful at DECA last week. I'm going to plug again our strategic planning meeting that we are scheduled to have on Thursday of this week. I will just kind of go backwards a little bit. So we did have our first meeting on February 27th right here in this room. We did a little over 60 participants. I would call them, I referenced them as, members of our school district community, kind of divvied people up that night. So that number was about 35, I'd say, members of the community who are not staff. Actually, but like 3 of them actually were staff. But we had about 13 students, which was really impressive, and about 30 members of the community under the parental umbrella, or just living in the community. We had about 30 or 35 staff to some degree, whether they're teachers, administrators. Like I said, I think we had about 3 folks who were teachers and residents, and parents. Interesting dynamic. So I was impressed with the number of participants. Typically with the strategic planning process, it's difficult to determine who will come out. And, typically the recommendation is to have at least about 35 to 50 folks to have a meaningful, engaging kind of process. So having 60 on the first meeting, I think, is a good reflection of our school district and our community. So meeting number 2, don't want to lose that momentum. Highly encouraging folks to come out again. So as I shared earlier, our first meeting was really focused around strengths and challenges. Mary Ann Friedman from New Jersey School Boards Association did an excellent job kind of facilitating that evening. She's here tonight for something else, but wanted to give her a shout out. So Mary Ann will be back here again on Thursday. Thursday's meeting will be kind of taking those strengths and challenges and looking to kind of refine those and engaging in a conversation and a process centered around aspirations and expectations for students in our district. So definitely looking forward to that. Thursday, 6 p.m. here. Last week, nationally, schools acknowledged, participated in Read Across America activities, really just to kind of highlight literacy, the importance of reading, the love of reading, the enjoyment of reading. I just wanted to thank some teachers who welcomed me into their classrooms, and the students were amazing. So I just want to thank the following GNR and EMK teachers. So from GNR, Ms. McDonald and Ms. Trost, thank you. Kids were awesome. At EMK, had the opportunity to visit Ms. Cunningham, Ms. Bernstein Carroll, Mr. Palmer, and Ms. Sheridan. Mr. Palmer had as I was reading, she said, "I think you came here to read to my students when you first got here." So as I was reading, I saw her scrolling through her phone, and as I was leaving, she said, "Here," and she showed me a picture of myself. And it was sad because I must have aged about 20 years since that time. So I said, thank you so much, Mr. Palmer, for sharing that with me. She's like, yeah, you're seasoned now. You're well seasoned now. Back then, you were fresh. You didn't. So thank you, Mr. Palmer. That was a great reminder. So moving along, you will notice that we are kind of doing a soft rollout of the new district logo. You saw it tonight at the beginning of the presentation. You're going to be seeing more of that as we move throughout the remaining portion of the school year. We'll kind of have an official launch in the summer into the new school year, but you will begin to see that be somewhat more prominent. Just as a reminder, we did engage in a process last year in terms of gathering feedback from various stakeholders in the community, really just to get an essence of what we believe the school district reflects, represents. And I'll commend Elise Mattioli, our coordinator of communications, for kind of spearheading a lot of that work. But once again, it's something that there were some themes that were developed in the process, and those themes are reflective in our new district logo. So those themes are diversity, education, growth, unity, and kind of a hometown sentiment that we got that feedback from students, staff, parents, just in terms of what the district reflects. So I do believe that the theme is kind of a six-piece connectivity dynamic, whether it's the district logo or the respective school logos. We did not change the mascots at any of our schools, but the process is now common across each of our schools. So I do believe that the new logo reflects the voices, the diversity, the inclusivity of our community, and I think it serves as a refreshed mosaic that represents the East Windsor Regional School District. And I think with that, I'm going to conclude my remarks tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, I just wanted to comment on the logo. I'm actually, the logo's really nice. Sometimes when I Google East Windsor, another school district comes up, and
In Connecticut.
and it had similar logo. So it's nice that our logo is different now.
Yes. Yeah, and that's interesting. We had someone reached out to us to let us know. It did create a little excitement recently. So it is interesting though, right? I know. So hopefully this will be a clear definition in terms of who we are in New Jersey. But thank you.
Any other questions? We'll move on to first opportunity for board member comments. Are there any board members who wish to speak or have a comment?
So as Mark mentioned, Jagrudi, Jenna, and I went and did a tour of MHK, GNR, and WC last week. Karen was supposed to join, but I guess you couldn't make it after all, which is fine. We'll tell you what happened. So yeah, Mark touched upon a lot of the upgrades, but it was really, we like to go in, we like to see these things after they've, been implemented. Obviously, we can't see the HVAC and the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, but at MHK was really nice. We saw a lot of upgraded rooms. They've been overhauled, they've been painted, new lighting. It's such a great way to see, like if you see the old classrooms compared to the new ones, it's such a difference. It's bright, it's cheerful, it's very conducive to learning, so it's great to see that stuff. Specifically, we also saw the new dance studio, the music room, the ABA room, and where the athletic trainer room will be, it's kind of in the process of being put together, but they've been very frugal and creative about using space and giving an actual location for that very important part of our staffing. And then obviously the parking lot. GNR, we saw lots of classrooms upgraded. Again, the paint, new cabinetry, sometimes the layout of the rooms and the lighting. The lighting is so important. And they had a lot of HVAC done, which we couldn't see. And then over at WCB, the star of the show was the new library. What a drastic difference. Like, it's beautiful. Like, we didn't want to leave. I think we stood in that room for 20 minutes, just like admiring every little facet, including the live plants. Really, really great. So yeah, that's about it. So we'll probably do one again next year. I guess Anytime. There we go. I didn't want to speak for you, but anytime. Contact Mark. So you have another opportunity to go. Yes, so that's it. It really is. And the mural at WCB as well that we saw the last time we were there, because the art room had been redone too, but they were working on this mural. It's a collective, I don't know how many people were involved in this mural. All the classes, it was school-wide. It is now on the wall right as you exit the library. It's phenomenal. Hopefully we'll see. Has that picture made it into any of the newsletters? I haven't noticed, but we should probably get a picture of it.
Well, when it first was unveiled, yes.
Okay, okay. We should,
We can revisit it.
that was a great project.
We had it in a couple of, couple weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had an unveiling last year.
Yeah, it was a great.
But then we like took it down because of the construction, like really quickly.
Mhm.
But now it's like back up.
Yeah, and it's up. It's not fully grouted. It will get fully grouted, but you can't tell unless you are like really looking at it in detail. But it's up there and it's gorgeous, and this makes the students really happy. They smile when they go by. Yes, touch that. But yeah. So we appreciate being able to see the before and after. So that's it on that. I do have one other remark. That in case anyone was interested, our esports team had their first tournaments last week against West Windsor Plainsboro, and they won in both Rocket League and Super Smash Brothers. So kudos to them. We're off to a great start. So, and then you can be up for curriculum? Okay.
We had a curriculum committee meeting this evening. There's a lot of content, and we've asked to flesh out the calendar with some additional touch points. But in general, tonight we went over a review of the Gifted and Talented program for K through 5, specifically that they've moved over from the COGAT testing format to NNAT3, which is a non-language focused based assessment, to make sure that they're able to capture participants that aren't necessarily, specifically ESL students or people that have learning disabilities and other issues. We talked through the enrichment programs for anybody that might not fully qualify for Gifted and Talented, but still has aptitude and opportunity for additional support, beginning with special projects happening from K through 2, and then with math and reading, having additional enrichment through grade 4, and math continues into grade 5. We discussed the curriculum and syllabi processes. Curriculum moved in 2018 from a static model to a dynamic model, meaning that the core curriculum that the board reviews and approves is static, but there are elements that are not pushed to a full review based on dynamic needs for pacing of the program, digital resources that are deployed, and other things that allow the curriculum team to be able to respond to student needs on the fly without having to pull in a full administrative vote. We addressed, talked about the syllabi process and how, in some cases, syllabi is used as not a substitute curriculum, but what we're as a district providing it to families primarily for electives due to the nature of electives and specialty subject matter where the syllabi truly is effectively the curriculum as it's being taught. And then we briefly touched on graduation requirements, where we reviewed quickly the state requirements alongside what the district requires and the offerings both for standard and AP course loads through graduation. And any one of those topics could have been a standalone meeting, so we're going to try to find a way to get more time. Yep. And if you're remembering anything else that I didn't remember to note on, let me know.
Yeah, you kind of touched upon all of it, but there's a lot of in-depth information, and I think we'll have a lot of questions for Sandy still, and we'll come back to it. We'll circle back. Okay, perfect. I was going to ask that if we can send that to everyone. That's great. Thank you.
I have a question for the curriculum committee. Was there any discussion or update on software?
There was, and right now they're in the midst of evaluating. You're in the evaluation phase and making sure we make the right decisions so that it will be, it can actually meet our needs now and in the future. So.
Do we have, I know we're in the shopping phase, do we have an estimated arrival of this software? I know that
Probably nothing's going to be even fully vetted until at least over the summer, because right now we're in the middle of all the new testings and all of that. So basically, we don't have the staffing available to totally commit to just working out and vetting all of the products that are available when they're working on necessity needs of the district right now. So they'll be looking at most of that stuff over the summer.
Is that what
and
you discussed?
finding
Did you discuss it in the meeting?
more, am I off? But I wasn't expecting anything by the end of the school year, based on what we talked about.
So if there's no system, so is the curriculum currently on the Google Drive? So that's the only place?
For board members, yes.
Yes. I mean, we have new ELA and math standards that need to be incorporated into our curriculum for the fall. In a perfect world, the fall would be a good rollout for a new system, because we're in the process of revising curriculum. It will be in the process of revising curriculum this summer. So stay tuned, right?
I guess one more comment, because Sandy, you had mentioned you're trying to find a happy medium between the syllabi and the curriculum, and making a syllabi more robust and more accessible to parents for getting more in-depth information without, opening our staff up to pacing issues and all of that. Because pacing issues need to be differentiated, and it can be from teacher to teacher. And I think what we need, this is one of those areas where we definitely need to have another meeting and go over it more, get more in-depth information, and figure out what best serves our district with all of that. So again, there was a lot in this meeting, so we couldn't cover all those nitty-gritty issues. I know where our concerns are, and they're heard, but how are they going to be addressed is still being fleshed out.
Just what I'll say is one of the reasons for tonight's content was to, one, provide some context in terms of some of the district practices that we have in place. For example, course pathways versus compared to New Jersey graduation requirements, and how we may go above that, but just in terms of where that came from. But also just providing some context regarding curriculum development and approval. And yes, the syllabi is something that's there. And I'll say this, and I've shared this with Karen before, obviously we want to have an element of transparency in terms of what a parent guide will be, without, one, it being too cumbersome, without it being too granular. We're not expecting parent guides to be the exact same curriculum that teachers are following and planning lessons for. And then two, we don't want to be in a situation where there could be some intellectual property there that we want to preserve. And two, we don't want to be in a predicament where it becomes that the parent guide is something that's being used against the teacher as it relates to, like, why aren't you here right now? So there needs to be an element of understanding in terms of flexibility regarding meeting the needs of students. But yes, we want to make sure that if a parent, and furthermore, if a parent needs to see the actual curriculum, then we will provide that to the parent, right? But we want to make sure that we engage in that process in a way that pursuing a software curriculum mapping tool will enable us to have should enable us to have a more fluid and flexible approach to that. So therefore, one, the parent guide should provide you with what you need. If you need to go deeper, then we can provide, if necessary, something that is more detailed, more granular. But ultimately, the parent guide should provide you with a clear sense of, what's reflective of the curriculum. So, and I just want something that's user-friendly, just something that's easy to manipulate and access.
I just have one more clarification. You said something about gifted and talented, K through 5. Is gifted and talented started in, or is it 3? I have a question.
It's enrichment programs.
Oh, okay.
Special projects and other.
Okay, right, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have just 2 questions. The one question is, when the board members went to do, with the superintendent went to do the tours, did you guys just tour 2 schools? Because I thought it was supposed to be 3.
We did 3. We did Krebs, Rogers, and Black.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then, did you guys get a chance to see lunch at all?
No, we did not.
Okay.
We were
Just a
there to tour facilities, not
Okay.
processes or situations, or we didn't want to subject ourselves to the noise.
Okay, and then the next question, you talked about the e-games, which was awesome, by the way. But how do, what grades are involved and how do they register?
From what I understand, it's the whole high school. Mark, if you can talk to that more.
Yeah, this is something that came about as we, there are some things that we established, whether it's through mandates from the state, or something that's, a curricular expectation or an extra or co-curricular expectation. Then there are other opportunities that are more organic that come through students and teachers. So this is something that we've been kind of toying with this esports concept. But we had a teacher who advocated for a club, and it kind of comes through a club dynamic. So this is kind of where we're starting it, and then we'll look to kind of see how it kind of flourishes here. So that's really where that came from. So right now it's at the high school. It doesn't mean it can't live elsewhere, but right now this is kind of where it blossomed. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Do we still have the club in middle school too? Because I think what happened is the middle schoolers started the club, brought it to the high school, and then the club still exists.
I think you're right.
But
I think
then
the middle
esports
school,
is its
I
own
think the
separate
club
thing too.
Yeah, it does exist. The esports has a little bit more. There's a little bit more definition in terms of some of the criteria that comes along with it, but I think there is something similar at the middle school. At least there was.
Because I'm not going to be able to recall this acronym, but who is the governing body of the athletic sports?
NJSIAA.
Yes, I knew it was something, but I wasn't going to get it right. So they also consider esports and athletics, where students can earn varsity letters, and then they can also receive tuition scholarships from colleges. Yes.
Yeah, Hamilton has an esports team, so that's where we're moving towards, right? But usually it's like volleyball, right? We had a pretty vibrant, robust volleyball club here that we looked at the attendance of that club over some time, and we recognized that we could quite comfortably transition to establishing an interscholastic athletic team, both boys and girls, under that tag, because we saw the participation rates that we had from a club. So hopefully esports will continue to flourish, and will, the possibilities are endless.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I had a question on the curriculum. I know there was a lot of information that had to be shared, and haven't gotten to it. When will you be getting to the AP classes and counting toward graduation? When are you planning to schedule, I guess, the next meeting? I guess you'll do like a focus meeting to, tackle one issue, or, because it looks like there's so much information.
Take a look at the information,
Okay.
because it's in there.
Okay.
Okay, the course pathways are in there, and then if you have any questions, we can address those. All right?
Thank you.
I think we definitely need to have a separate graduation requirement meeting.
Well, there's two ways to look at it. We have another curriculum committee meeting on the calendar, so we can wait till then, or we can establish a convenient time for the curriculum committee to reconvene. So how about I share some dates, and then we can determine what seems to be most appropriate. All right?
I wanted to I have a couple quick things. I know that we have training. Mark, in terms of the tours, I know it's really difficult to schedule those tours, so thank you so much for doing that. If possible, if there's, I know it's hard to schedule them for you, but it's also hard I know I couldn't with work obligations, I wasn't able to make them, and I know now that Paul is here too. So if there are any other dates, even if it's just one or two schools, if you could just let us know.
So what I'll do is, if board members are interested in visiting schools, remember this was tagged, and it doesn't necessarily have to be tagged to facility upgrades. I just tied it to the work. I think it's important for the board to see the investments, right? These are pretty significant undertakings in terms of financial commitments. So I think it's important to see it. However, it doesn't have to be restricted to that. Years ago, I recall we visited, I think it was Bob at that point in time, we visited some of our STEM classrooms. We were establishing STEM intentionally at the elementary and middle school level. And then Bob was interested in just seeing it. So it doesn't have to be restricted to that, but it just seemed like it lent itself to it. So I can revisit that. That
Yeah, that'd be great.
invitation, quite honestly, is open, but I'll put it back out there.
I'm going to save my other two comments. I think I can put them under old business. If there's no more questions, we'll move on. First opportunity for public comment. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak? Nope. We're now going to move on to exec session. We do have a training for superintendent evaluation, so it may take a little longer than normal. What do you think, an hour? Marianne, like half hour? 45? So we're going to be gone about an hour, and then we'll be back to vote on some items. Thank you. Okay, we're back in session. We'll move on to item 7, old business. List of the committee meetings. As always, if you have a problem or you can't attend one of the committee meetings, please just let the administrator who's running the committee and Paul know. And I guess we will be adding, Sandy, you'll throw out some dates to the committee for curriculum so we can add. Yeah. I had 2 things I thought maybe we could add for old business that had come up previously. One was back when Chartwells was here and they gave that demonstration. I can't remember if that was the end of January or February. I know that we had talked about briefly, there's a lot of waste with the food, with the kids that are throwing stuff out. Yeah, I know we're talking about composting or working with the schools that have the gardens. And then my other thing was, I know I had also mentioned at another meeting, some of the design classes and the arts classes use MacBooks. And I've heard that sometimes there's issues with either, I don't know if it's a connectivity issue or if it's a MacBook itself issue, that there are some issues with some of the computers.
I do recall that was an issue, but I thought that issue was resolved. So I have to follow up. I thought it was resolved.
Yeah, I think, but I think it might be, I think maybe that one instance was resolved, but I think it's something that happens more often with them not always, all of them working, or there being connectivity issues.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall what the issue was because we identify what the concern was, and right now it's escaping me. So I will follow up with Ray Neshi, our technology coordinator. And
That'd be great.
I'll follow up.
Thank you. If no one has any questions, we can move on. Second opportunity for board member comments. Anyone have any comments?
In hearing the presentation earlier, the budget presentation, the goal about the equity audit, is that something that we've received yet, or are we waiting on those findings?
I think I shared it with the board.
You did?
I can share it again.
Okay.
Yeah, I presented it. I guess it wasn't a great presentation. Thanks, Colin.
We were in the
I did
auditorium.
present the findings. Presented the findings at
Yes,
one of our
thank
December
you.
meetings.
Yeah.
And then I believe I also shared the comprehensive audit, but I can revisit that. I can share it again.
No, that's all very familiar right now.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. It's the time change.
Are there any other board members who have any comments?
I just wanted to talk, so about Chartwells, right? And we were talking about maybe looking at another food vendor. When are we going to get information on that vendor?
So we're beginning the renewal process. So we'll put an RFP out on the street, and then other companies will submit their proposals.
And when they submit their proposal, is that going to include like a, maybe like a gallery of what kind of food, rice, food?
Maybe a tasting.
Or something that we can better understand what they would actually be serving the students?
Yes, I believe as part of the process, they have to submit a 30-day menu.
Okay, thank you.
Paul, that's not something we have to go with lowest bid on, is it? Or, I didn't think so.
It's a
It's not-
competitive bid, so it'll be graded.
Okay.
Anybody else? If not, second opportunity for public comment. Is there any member of the public who wishes to have a comment? There being none, we will move on to item 9.
Having read the materials received, I move that the board approve the routine agenda items as submitted. A, staffing for March 11th, 2024. B, HIP report from February 26th, 2024. C, approve travel and related expenses, virtual and in person. D, approve new field trip sites for upcoming trips. E, approve carryover amendment of ESEA fiscal year 2023 to 2024, Title 1, 2, 3 immigrant, and 4. F, approve Hightstown High School overnight trip to for the New Jersey FCCLA 2024 State Leadership Conference in Cherry Hill, New Jersey in March of 2024. G, technology recycling batch number 45. H, approve MHK surplus equipment. I, co-op purchases. J, approval of the 2024-2025 budget. So for 2024 and 2025 total expenditures in the general fund, there's $127,468,556 we're approving. Special revenue, $2,156,888. Debt service, $2,376,420, for a total of $132,001,864. Less the anticipated revenues. You know, and I did this wrong. I was going to go down in columns. Do we care? Okay. $55,869,986. Under general fund, special revenue, $2,156,888. Debt service, 0, for total $58,026,874. With taxes to be raised under general fund, $71,598,570. Special revenue, 0. Debt service, $2,376,420. Total, $73,974,990. Okay. K, approval of HIT grant vendor. L, final change order number 4 for HVAC upgrades at GNR and WCB. M, final change order number 4 for internal renovations at GNR and WCB. N, board minutes for February 26, 2024. O, board minutes for special board meeting February 27th, 2024. P, report of the board secretary and financial report January of 2024. Q, expense and transfer reports of school monies report for January 2024. And R, bill list of March 11th, 2024.
Second.
Any questions?
I have
Yeah.
a question. Oh, sorry.
Sure.
I have a question for 9C. For O'Rourke and Lands, their amount is under $10. Is that for like parking? For 9C, O'Rourke, it's $8.78, and then for Lands, it's $7.70. Those seem like odd numbers. Is that for? And then for 9R, what does, for batch number, it says 50, what does 50 stand for?
A batch is just the way the accounts payable department goes ahead and kind of pulls the invoices to be paid. And they just kind of assign random numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Doesn't mean anything in particular.
Yeah, I had a spot. It was something about there was some type of assessment done for the varsity tutoring, and I lost my spot. There was a chart on it with percentage on it. Can you tell me what that is? I can't find it. Yeah, where is that? L?
You're referring to the award of the vendor for the tutoring.
Item K.
Item K?
Item K, yes, please.
Item K. So this is the HIT grant. It sounds HIT. High intensity tutoring. So this is actually a revisit. So I know it's going to feel convoluted. So you're right. Rewind the clock. We had an RFP out to determine if we could identify a vendor to provide tutoring, high-intensity tutoring at that point. That RFP, though, was designed for students in grades 1 through 9. That's how we kind of advertised it. Actually, we kind of went beyond that. We wanted to go elementary, middle, high. And we ended up going with varsity for a host of reasons, mainly because they provided this catalog of resources and accessibility. On the heels of that, the Department of Education put forth a high-intensity tutorial grant specifically for students in grades 3 through 5 to address learning loss. So we pursued that grant opportunity. That, and I'll just rewind a little bit. So the initial grant proposal, tutorial grant that we pursued, at that time, we said, you know what? This tutorial support will be more so after school. You make the appointment via parents. But then we had this other resources connected to it and some on-demand tutoring as well. On the heels of that, there was a grant opportunity that presented itself for students specifically in grades 3 through 5. We pursued that, right? That proposal was tagged to providing before-school support and potentially in-school support under the tutorial umbrella. The difference with that approach was that it would still be what was deemed to be high intensity, and that's really 2 to 3 days a week, one-to-one small group. But we were looking to have that occur before school, and then we were going to go a step further and enlist some of our teachers to be present, so there would be some in-person support of our teachers. But then you would be connected virtually to your virtual tutor during the before-school session, right? So that was a little bit of a hybrid model we were exploring. We were also thinking about the possibility of that tutoring occurring in class at some point. And then we believe that the technology associated with it, I'm kind of rambling here, but it was tied to GoGuardian that we currently use to monitor student activity on our devices. And we were envisioning teachers being able to have an awareness of what that tutoring would look like in class, and also before school, but with the teachers that are assigned. So we identified a vendor before for this grant here. If you recall, a few meetings ago, I shared that, part of the RFP process is us as a district outlining expectations. And then you as a vendor, you look and you say, oh, is that something we can do? Or maybe not. But this vendor said, sure, we're on board. When it came down to actually beginning the process, they then turned around and they said to us, oh, you want us to do this before school? We didn't realize that. It's clearly stated in there that that was an expectation. So it was a bit embarrassing. So we had to do an about turn, communicate with families and students to say, hey, we need to pause this right now. And then we had to kind of go back out again to determine who an appropriate vendor would be. Varsity is here because they put their hat in the ring for this specific type of tutoring. So it's a little bit different. There's some similarities, but there's some differences in terms of the tutoring that we're offering. So this was more so grant oriented. Yes, there are some provisions associated with the grant that we need to be a little bit more prescriptive about in terms of how we were pursuing it. But now we find ourselves with Philo EdTech, who were actually one of the vendors who I think rewinding the clock, that when we put their RFP out there for the grades 1 through 9, they were in that mix as well. But there's a slightly different expectation. Their price point is actually a good price point. They indicated that they have the tutors available. So this is where we find ourselves, because we're feeling, it's difficult to plan something, but also promise something. We've identified 112 students that we think would benefit from this, at least to get it going, who've committed to wanting to come before school. So we're like back at this point again to restart it, in essence, all right?
The tutoring, it's a yearly contract?
Varsity tutoring is yes, we still have a contract with them for this year. The approach, like I said, is a little bit of a different approach that we're using with them. So yes, we're still connected to them.
Okay, so we'll be able to do another reassessment like this one?
Yeah, we have no obligation beyond this
Okay.
year to pursue them. To stay with them as a partner. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there a reason that we just didn't use teachers for the tutoring before school, so that it was completely in person versus this hybrid?
Yeah, the reason, as I just shared, the rationale was, one, we definitely wanted to have some in-person support, but we wanted to pursue like a one-to-one dynamic, which we don't have a teacher pool to provide that. As much as we would love to, we would prefer that, but we were looking to leverage the possibilities of providing some individualized support actually during class time. Like that's where we wanted to go. So that was one of the reasons why we initially, the Tutor Me vendor was attractive because there was a connection with some software that we could leverage, we thought we could leverage in the classroom setting. So it's twofold. One, because we would prefer it to be one-to-one tutoring, we don't have enough teachers to do it. So therefore, we're trying to say, okay, we wanted to have some in-person support. That in-person support is more so small group, then we would peel you off to get some individualized tutorial support, and that teacher would be aware of that. And then we were also anticipating that in your classroom teacher would also be very familiar with the type of support you're getting real time. That was the rationale behind that.
And how long is the contract for?
For this here,
Yeah.
you know, there's a window. I think it's through the end of the school year. I mean, we have to utilize the funds based on the grant. Grant was about $280,000. So through that grant, we're paying some of our teachers to do some additional work, but also the virtual vendor.
This is so minor, but just in case we want, accuracy. Yes.
I should say we can actually transition into the summer if we need to. I'm going to point that out. Sorry about that.
That's fine. On O, for the list of people who were in attendance for the special meeting, the only reason I noticed this was because she was in my group. Number 42, Lon Emerson, should be Lori. It was probably her handwriting. Let's blame it on that.
The issue, I could have given you this is based on the fact that this is how people signed in, and
Right,
then,
yeah.
and Marianne siphoned these off and then fed us
Yeah.
the sign-in sheets, but you're right.
Again,
No, that's a good point.
so
Well, actually,
minor, but
and the same thing with 37, now I'm looking at it. Laura, it should be Lori Chappelle, not Laura.
all right. Sorry, I didn't mean to open up a floodgate here.
So we can clean that up. Yeah, we pulled this right from Marianne's sign-in.
I'll take it back.
It's a lot. It's a hot mess. So we'll replace it.
It's the editor in me. Sorry.
No. I think, Rodney Point this hour.
Ours are right, as Jean pointed out, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we'll correct it.
Paul, we had discussed that we are going to edit the meeting minutes for when Paula was nominated. I didn't make any motions.
That is correct. I'll go back and talk to Vindy tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
I do have one question, and I'm kind of late on it, but the committee meetings, curriculum and finance are both on April 29th. I thought last meeting we talked about picking different dates.
Any other questions? Poll the board, please.
Ms. Drake,
Yes.
Ms. Lands,
Yes. Oh,
Miss-
except my computer's restarting, so the travel and related expenses, I abstain from any line items pertaining to myself.
Ms. Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Bajoli,
Yes.
Mr. Weeks,
Yes.
Ms. Patel,
Yes.
Ms. Salter,
Yes.
Ms. Kalia,
Abstain from N and O, yes to the rest.
Ms. LaRusso.
Yes. There's no need for a second executive session. Motion to adjourn.
Don't turn your computer off. Hold on a second. Hold on, let's get this.